This is the story of how new friends were made, good times were had, and a struggle of survival through a night of bad decisions. We were a very relaxed and chill group, so if you're looking for a video of pteranodons pecking and annoying everyone, this isn't it. We certainly enjoyed our playthrough though, so if you're still here, grab a drink, a snack, sit back, and enjoy. Freshly spawned at water access, I rested upon a pillar overlooking the dino-infested lake I had just pulled myself out of moments before, surprised to still be alive. Another pteranodon by the name of Flannelbum rested on another pillar nearby. They seemed friendly enough and quickly offered to get me some fish. Since my stomach was pretty much empty and fishing wasn't going great, I gladly accepted their offer. With starvation no longer being a threat to my life, I gave fishing another try, this time being more careful not to drop too low into the water. A friend of Flannelbum's joined us for a bit. As they plummeted to their death, I learned they were new to the game and still learning the Pteranodon mechanics. Feeling a bit thirsty, I set out across the lake toward a shallow drinking spot where dinos were not likely to make you their snack. Flannelbum's friend had made it back, and they set to work gathering more fish for them. I hung my beak below the water surface as I glided over a fishing spot, hoping to snag a fish of my own. It wasn't long before a silvery figure dangled from my beak as I made my way back towards the dam. As I approached the pillar my group rested on, I slowly lowered myself down for a hopeful, safe landing. Flannelbum's friend did a little greeting dance, and another young pteranodon landed on the pillar beside us. Stubble was now a part of our growing pteranodon group. Red wings beat through the air as Flannelbum brought back more fish for all of us. They always made sure to care for everyone in the group, especially the newcomers. Once I had caught my breath, my stomach still only half full, I set out to do more fishing of my own. I found myself back in the lake, and surprisingly made it to shore a second time, pulling myself from the water, now needing to return to the pillar to rest again. A green frog now rests on the pillar, Flannelbum towering over it, continuing to keep us all well fed and alive. Once my energy had been restored, I gave fishing another try. It wasn't long before I had another fish dangling from my beak. We spent a lot of time growing at this lake, mostly because every time we were ready to leave, something prevented us from being able to. The sky began to darken, fog moved in, and it began to downpour on us as we sat there eating our fish. Watching the storm, the rain pouring over us, a young pteranodon seemed to come flying with the wind and landed upon our pillar. Blue Light Owl had now joined our group. Even with the dark skies and terrible weather, Flannelbum was quick to offer them some frog and gather more fish for them to eat. Had I been having more luck keeping myself fed and alive, I would have been right there helping Flannelbum feed the rest of the group. As the storm continued, I was growing thirsty. I made my way towards the shallow drinking spot and could just imagine the rain pelting down on my skin and the wind rushing all around me. I wondered how difficult it would really be to fly in a storm such as this one. As I drank from the lake, I watched the rain as it hit the water's surface, just enjoying the moment really, while also being paranoid about something attacking me while I drank. Still feeling a bit hungry, I dipped my beak in and snagged another fish on my way back to the dam. That's when I seen we had another group member. We decided to call them HT for short. As the storm raged on, we spent a lot of time just sitting and talking together, getting to know each other a bit more. When the storm finally died down, darkness was setting in, which meant we sat just chatting together a lot. Darkness was setting in fast, and in my attempt to catch fish to hold me over for the night, it resulted with me being out of stam with nothing to show for it, due to my FPS being so low. Thankfully, everyone pitched in to be sure I didn't starve to death while I rested and regained my energy. Had it not been for my group, I would have died for sure. Blue Light Owl was still learning how to fish and was waiting for weather and light not to be an issue. As a group, everyone took care of each other pretty well, always willing to help when needed. Soon enough, my health was mostly restored. I went AFK for 1 second. Flannelbum called out, trying their best to warn me, but it was to no avail. This Herrera was nice enough to wait for me to return instead of just killing me for being AFK like most people would. As I returned to my computer, I could see the two Herreras standing over me, and I thought for sure there was no way I was surviving this. I got up and took off as quickly as possible. I don't think they were expecting that. Somehow I survived the encounter, and for that, I was thankful. Looking back at this clip makes me laugh because I thought I had made it just in time to get away, but no. They were there for a lot longer than I thought, and definitely had plenty of time to kill me. I circled the lake for a minute to see where everyone would move to. Everyone seemed to still be around the dam, so I returned to stay with my group. I glided over the pillars to check where the Herreras were, and landed on the pillar furthest away from them, still knowing they could easily get to any of us if they wanted to. I was keeping a close eye on those Herreras. Or, at least, I thought I was. They didn't waste any time attacking this time. Somehow I survived again, this time in a little worse shape than our last encounter though. Blood surely dripping into the water below as I flew over the lake. I took cover in some brush on the other side of the lake, barely alive and bleeding heavily. I remembered there was a wallowing spot close by that could help plug up my wounds. I dragged myself over to it, forgetting that it was raining too hard for mud to stick to me. Thankfully the bleeding stopped anyways. Close to death, I was thankful my stomach and thirst were doing pretty good at least. I found a rock on the other side of the lake to rest on and try to regain my health. The rock sat by a small waterfall that flowed into a river. There was no sound from the waterfall though, only the sound of thunder and wind from the storm that seemed to just go on and on. The rest of my group joined me, and we all hoped the Herreras would stay over by the dam, giving us time to heal, or at least me time to heal. When the storm finally died down again, the early morning sun was coming up, casting its light upon the lands and making it easier for us to see. A dilo called out, not far away. It was the first of anyone we had heard since being at the lake. Circling above us were 3 unknown pteranodons. One flew down and landed on our rock, who ended up being stubble. They had died from accidentally crashing into another bird. It happens. The other 2 kept to themselves and never grouped up with us. A dino made its presence known. Being stuck in the water can get boring when there's not much else going on. I'm sure it was hoping for some action of some sort. Perhaps the dilo's calls had given them hope. The dilo seemed to be getting closer now as it called out again. Perhaps looking for another dilo to group up with, or getting ready to hunt anyone at the lake. With my health now mostly recovered, again, I decided to make my way over to the other part of the lake to try some more fishing. If you look closely, you might see it. I glide right over a small dino just under the water. After snagging another fish closer to the dam, I did a quick check to see if the Herreras were still around. They seemed to have moved on, so I chanced landing and eating my fish on the pillar, overlooking a dino doing typical dino things, eating their own kind. At this point, we were all wanting to leave the lake and go explore. However, it was about to get dark again, and since I recorded this before the new night vision update, it would still be pitch black for us. Instead, we all decided to fill up on water and more fish before we wouldn't be able to see what we were doing. With darkness setting in so fast, I opted for eating the fish right on the shore instead of taking each one all the way back to the dam. All of that fishing took a lot of energy. I filled up on water and set out to snag one more fish on the way back to the dam, hoping it would fill me up the rest of the way and get me through the night. Unfortunately, I didn't have any luck with fishing this time and ended up just going back to the dam. My stomach mostly full anyways. I got reinvited back to group, and Flannelbum was stuck in some sort of flying glitch that only I could see. We decided to spend the night in a nearby tree this time, in the hopes of being able to see a Herrera coming sooner if they tried to attack us again. It was my first time trying to land in a tree since these Herrera trees got added in, and it didn't go quite as planned. I thought it was pretty funny though, especially the mouth. My second attempt didn't go much better, this time missing my landing and falling from the tree. Thankfully, I caught myself before I plummeted to my death and tried again. Third time's a charm, right? Right. A successful landing at last. Somehow Blue Light Owl ended up sick in the night, so we all headed off to the nearby Salt Rock, in the pitch black. Again, this is before the new night vision update. Thankfully, Flannelbum knew right where to go, even in the pitch black. If you're curious, the Salt Rock is located on the southeast side of the lake, I believe. If you're looking across the lake from the dam, it's to your right. At least, that's where it is at the time of this video. You never know what will be changed in the Isle. For those new to the game, hold E to lick the Salt Rock, and it will help take away your sickness. At this point in the night, I was pretty hungry and thirsty. The fish I'd caught before it got so dark didn't quite last as long as I would have liked, so I did a little fishing. You'd think it wouldn't be too hard to find the drinking spot in the dark. Just follow the shoreline, right? Somehow it still took me a while to find it. Too dark to do much of anything else, and my stomach was still pretty empty, so I decided to just keep fishing. Finally, the sun came up enough where I could see to land in the trees again and join back up with my group. By the time I got there, though, everyone was ready to leave the lake and do some exploring. I was thankful everyone still needed to get water and such before we headed out, so I could regain some of my stam first. Blue Light Owl did the same. Soon enough, everyone was ready and headed off down the river, so I went and caught up with them. Our flight down the river was relaxing and very enjoyable. Having so many of us in a group, we had to be careful of each other since rivers are more narrow than lakes. We enjoyed fishing as we went, stopping to drink from waterfall areas, and hanging out in pretty places while we caught more fish or rested up. This was one of my favorite moments of our time together, so I'll stop talking for a minute and let you guys just experience it as we did. We all needed to regain our stam and rest up, so we stayed in this area for a little bit, just really enjoying the beauty around us. Unfortunately, Blue Light Owl and Stubble had to log off for the day. Only HT, Flannelbum, and I remained. We had moved to this rock in the middle of the river since I kept hearing something moving around in the brush behind us on the other rock. We did a little more fishing and regained more stam, then continued our journey down the river while we still had some daylight. This bridge was another spot we really enjoyed hanging out at. We stayed here until we had caught all of the fish out of this fishing hole and just enjoyed hanging out and chatting with one another. I had hoped to see someone crossing over the bridge, but today things were pretty quiet here. With the fish now gone, it was time to move on down the river, wondering where our next resting spot might be. We had reached the end of the river and now found ourselves at the swamp. I wondered if we'd see anybody else here, since our journey so far had been pretty quiet. Nobody else around but us. Flannelbum mentioned trying to hunt some turtles since we were next to the ocean. The thought of having enough food to fill our bellies without having to catch a bunch of fish sounded great. I wondered if I could get us to the turtle and crab spot from here. I had never traveled there from the swamps, so I wasn't quite sure which direction they'd be in. I was hoping maybe Flannelbum knew of another spot. Unfortunately, we hadn't seen any turtles or crabs on this beach yet. I started scanning the area in the hopes I'd recognize something that could send us in the right direction of the turtles. I thought I had recognized something, so I was feeling pretty confident I could get everyone to where they were. We'd need full stam for the journey, though. Once everyone was ready, I led the way towards where I thought the turtles were. As we got closer to where I was taking us, I started having doubts that I was going in the right direction. Unfortunately, Flannelbum now had to log out too. We were sad to see them go, since we were certainly enjoying our time together. The sun was setting quickly, and the smart thing to do would have been to head back to the river for the night. Why we kept going on our search for turtles right now, I have no idea. Especially when we didn't know exactly where they were, and especially because we were already at half hunger, half stam, and half thirst. The sun had set and another big storm rolled in. Only HT and I were left. We found a rock along the beach to regain our stam on for a bit, hunger and water getting lower, and for some reason, we still pushed on instead of turning back where we knew there was fresh water and fish. I really don't know what we were thinking. Now pitch black, where we can't see anything, so looking for turtles or crabs was pretty pointless. I wouldn't be able to recognize any landmarks since, well, I simply couldn't see them. I hoped they'd be up and over the hill. We made it to the other side of the hill. Unfortunately, there was still no turtles or crabs to be found, and we were both pretty low on stam. Hunger and thirst started to become a real problem. We rested right on the beach. It was too dark to bother trying to find a safer place to land. With our hunger and thirst too low, we had to give up our hunt for turtles. HT was able to pull up a map to lead us to fresh water. Right in the nick of time, too. Our water was so low. Neither of us wasted any time getting a much-needed drink. With our food also being so low, HT headed off in search of fish while I quenched my thirst. I caught up with them when I was done. Unfortunately, our stam was too low to continue our search, and we were forced to rest. HT was in worse shape than I was, at only 3% hunger. Finding food fast was very necessary, and we didn't have time to wait for our stam to fully refill. As soon as we could, we went back to looking for fish. However, there seemed to be no fish spawning in the swamps this night. We didn't see any frogs or anyone else in the area either. We probably should have not wasted our time searching the swamp and just headed straight for the river. I think we were both in such desperate need of food that we weren't thinking clearly. And we both thought there would be fish in the swamp somewhere. We were both out of stam again. HT had pulled up their map to take us back to the river. We were too tired to make it there, though, and neither of us had time to rest before we would starve to death. HT was hurting pretty bad and wasn't going to make it much longer. I sniffed around a bit, hoping there would be a carcass somewhere we could eat from. After a bit of sniffing, I caught scent of bones. Knowing it would make us sick, it was still our best chance at surviving this night. I let HT know, but we were so out of stam, neither of us could make it to them either. I was stuck on the other side of the water until I rested for at least a minute. If you try to cross water without stam, you just sink straight to the bottom. Again, I was forced to rest. HT was closer to the bones than I was, and since they were worse off than I was, which was really bad since my stomach was already red and completely empty, I hoped they'd make it. Unfortunately, they still hadn't made it to the bones either, and were starting to doubt they were going to survive. I flew towards them, trying to make my way to HT and the bones. I hit a tree, which knocked me to the ground, and made me use up more of my stamina. It looked like the bones were right there in front of us. I tried to swim out to get them, forgetting that I was out of stam and I would sink to the bottom. I pulled myself back out of the water and again was forced to rest. Thankfully, HT had finally made it and was getting some much-needed food. Finally, I had also made it to the skeleton. I didn't waste any time digging right in. We both ate until both of our stomachs were completely filled up. I didn't expect to get that much food off of the skeleton, but I guess I'm more used to Dino and Serrato, where bones barely fill you up at all. Now, good on food and water, it looked like we would survive after all. We certainly wouldn't have if those bones weren't there. All we needed now was stam. We both knew the bones would make us sick, so we weren't sure how much time we'd have before we lost most of the contents in our stomach. By the time our stam was refilled all the way, the sun had also come up, and things were looking good after a long night of struggling to find food. As we were about ready to leave, both of us ended up getting sick. I was thankful we had time to restam all the way, and we could now see where we were going before that happened. We headed off again into the morning light. With both of us being sick, we were hoping to find a salt rock somewhere nearby. Neither of us knew if one existed by the swamp or not. I followed HT back down the beach, and we got a notification that the server would be restarting in 1 minute. So we had to log out for a bit. We settled down on the beach, both sick, low stam, hunger, and thirst once again being a problem. And this is where part 1 of our story ends. Flannelbum, HT, Blue Light Owl, and I all ended up playing together for the next few days. So if you'd like to see part 2, be sure to give this video a like. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging with me. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, bye-bye.